Sometimes life feels so calm, so complete, that it makes you suspicious, like the silence before a storm. Clara often felt that way. Her life was beautiful yet hollow. A husband, a home, stability, all in place. But her heart felt like an empty room where only echoes of memory remained. Daniel, her husband, was a man of quiet confidence. His words were measured, his presence steady. Yet beneath that calm lay a wall Clara had never managed to cross. She would sometimes say, "Talking to you feels like sharing secrets with a stranger." He would simply smile. "Maybe I'm the stranger who can't hear the storms inside you." That sentence would pierce Clara's chest like an arrow. Yet she remained silent, as if silence had always been the rule of their marriage. Then Ethan came into her life. He was the new graphic designer at her office, assigned to a collaborative project with her. There was a freedom in his words, a lightness in his laughter that made Clara's restrained existence feel heavy in contrast. On their first meeting, he said, "Your eyes are full of stories you haven't told anyone." That struck something deep inside her. After years, someone was finally seeing her. Time passed. Meetings grew longer. It started innocently enough. Shared coffees, casual conversations, small smiles. But gradually, it became something Clara hadn't expected. Ethan's presence colored her days, lingered in her nights. She knew it was wrong, yet the heart often ignores the mind's warnings. One afternoon, Daniel came home earlier than usual. Clara flinched. He was always buried in work. But that day, there was something different about him. He walked straight into the living room and picked up a tiny earring from the table. The very one Clara had worn to meet Ethan at a downtown hotel. "This isn't yours." "Is it?" he asked softly. Clara's hands shook. Maybe someone dropped it?" For a heartbeat, Daniel looked into her eyes. Deep, unreadable, silent. "Someone dropped it?" he echoed, then smiled lightly and walked away. Clara didn't understand that smile, but an unsettling unease began to creep into her chest. In the following days, Daniel's behavior was unnervingly normal, perhaps too normal, almost unnatural. He spoke, complimented, acted attentive, yet in his eyes, there was a fatigue, a quiet sharpness, a tension she couldn't place. That night, Clara dreamt of herself in an empty room where every wall displayed her secrets. She woke in a cold sweat. Daniel was lying beside her, his face obscured by shadows, not sleeping, only waiting. The next morning, she found a small note under her coffee cup. "What color suits you today?" Just a line. Yet it carried a tone of subtle mockery, a silent accusation. It was the first real sign that perhaps her secret life wasn't so secret anymore. From that day on, Daniel's smiles began to tell a new story, one that had started quietly, but whose shadows were already creeping into every corner of Clara's carefully curated world. The days that followed were a slow tightening of invisible threads around Clara's life. Every small, ordinary action seemed to carry a hidden weight. She began noticing little things. The lipstick she reserved for Ethan, missing from her bag, only to mysteriously reappear later. Emails confirmed for reservations she hadn't made, weekend getaways she had never booked. Each incident chipped away at her sense of control, but Daniel's presence was always calm, almost casual, a deceptive shield that masked an unseen intent. Clara's paranoia grew. She double-checked locks, changed passwords, even questioned whether Ethan had somehow discovered her routine. But nothing made sense. When she tried to tell Ethan, he brushed it off, annoyed. "You're not fully present anymore. You're a million miles away." He was right. Clara realized she was no longer living freely in her own choices. She was constantly anticipating invisible eyes watching her every move. Then came the first text that made her heart stop. She had told Daniel she was attending a work conference. A lie, of course. A full day with Ethan was planned. A rare indulgence. Room service, conversations stretching into laughter, the thrill of forbidden connection. For a few hours, she felt alive again, and then her phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. "Hope the conference is going well, honey. You left your presentation notes on the kitchen counter. Looks important. Do you want me to scan and email them?" Clara froze. Her stomach dropped into a pit of cold dread. She had left no notes, prepared nothing for a conference that didn't exist. Her hands trembled as she typed. "It's fine. I have it all on my laptop." Another ping. "Are you sure?" There's a section highlighted in pink about quarterly projections. Her blood ran cold. Quarterly projections? She worked in marketing for a nonprofit. She had never touched projections like these. Daniel was testing her. Panic clawed at her throat. The rest of the evening became a blur. Ethan noticed, demanded explanations, but Clara could barely form words. The truth she had kept so carefully hidden was exposed in seconds. Daniel had known all along. Every earring, every misplaced lipstick, every phantom email, it had been him. The calm husband she had underestimated was in full command of her unraveling. Returning home felt like stepping into a theater of her own destruction. She expected shouting, tears, confrontation. Instead, the house was quiet, pristine. Daniel sat in his study, the soft glow of his monitor illuminating his face. "You're home early," he said, neutral, almost bored. "How was the conference?" Clara's voice caught. She whispered, It was fine." He nodded slowly, eyes unreadable, and returned to his work. His normalcy was a weapon, precise and calculated. The silence screamed louder than any argument could. In the following days, Daniel's tactics became evident. He was perfect, making coffee, picking up dry cleaning, attentive in every way. Yet everything felt designed to unsettle her. It wasn't kindness. It was control. Clara's affair crumbled under the weight of fear. Every interaction with Ethan now felt tainted, dangerous. She ended it abruptly over a tense phone call, leaving him frustrated and furious, but she no longer cared. Her focus had shifted entirely to surviving in her own home. Subtle changes continued. Books rearranged, favorite mugs replaced, music switched. It was as though her presence was being methodically erased. Clara realized she had become a ghost haunting her own life. Her house no longer a refuge, but a labyrinth of invisible traps. The first public display came at a neighbor's barbecue. Daniel, arm firmly around her, presented a perfect picture of a devoted husband. To everyone else, they were the enviable couple. To Clara, it was a cage, a calculated exhibition of control. Small comments, light-hearted jokes about her being always busy, planted doubt in her social circles. Daniel was isolating her, curating her guilt, crafting a narrative where she was distant and neglectful while he appeared patient and devoted. Every glance from him carried the quiet message. He held all the cards, and her fate rested entirely in his hands. Clara had begun to understand the terrifying scope of Daniel's plan. Every detail of her life had been observed, catalogued, and quietly manipulated. The final proof came on a Saturday morning during the garage sale he had suggested. A mundane task to declutter the house. Clara had hoped for relief and normalcy, but relief never came. As people sifted through their old belongings, a neighbor picked up a small framed photograph. Clara's heart froze. It was a picture of her and Ethan, laughing during one of their early lunches, the intimacy subtle but undeniable. She had hidden that photo in a drawer, but here it was, in a box of kitchen odds and ends. Her eyes sought Daniel. Across the driveway, he was helping a man load a chair, his expression perfectly calm. For a single heartbeat, the mask of the perfect husband slipped, revealing cold triumph in his eyes. He had planted it intentionally. The woman set the photo down, uninterested, and moved on. But the message had landed. Daniel was silently proving that he could expose her at any time, at any place, and humiliate her before the world. Clara felt the full weight of his control. Every moment of her secret life had been anticipated, every small pleasure monitored and neutralized. Days blended into one another in quiet torment. Daniel's perfection was disarming. He cooked coffee in the mornings, asked about her day, remembered every errand. Yet his attentiveness carried a calculated chill. His eyes were calm, flat, and precise. The expression of a man assessing a specimen under glass. The life she had once known had become alien, a carefully reconstructed environment she no longer recognized. Clara's sense of self unraveled. The thrill of her affair had vanished. Fear replaced desire. Each conversation with Ethan felt like stepping into a minefield. She ended it hastily, citing guilt, but it no longer mattered. She had become prey, and Daniel was the hunter. Finally, the day of reckoning came. A Tuesday morning, eerily reminiscent of the first day it had all begun. The autumn sun gentle on the countertops, coffee steaming in mugs. Clara stood before him, trembling, unable to maintain the walls of composure she had fought to uphold. Words poured out in a choked confession, a desperate plea for understanding, for any emotion from the man she had underestimated. Daniel listened silently. Then he set his mug down, soft click, and said, "I know, Clara. I've known for months." He slid his tablet across the table. On the screen was everything. Receipts from hotels she had thought were secret, deleted texts captured, a log of her every move, perfectly time-stamped. A cold case of her betrayal, fully documented. "I've already filed for divorce," he continued, voice even, eyes devoid of hurt. "I didn't want to fight. I wanted to win, and I have." He stood, picking up a single suitcase by the door. The departure was calm, almost mundane, yet it carried the finality of an empire falling. Everything Clara had held dear, the house, her social standing, even the illusion of dignity, had already been accounted for in his plan. Daniel's revenge was not a single act of rage. It was the cumulative effect of months of silent precision. Alone, Clara understood the full magnitude of what she had faced. The man she had believed to be ordinary, trustworthy, and kind had orchestrated the slow dismantling of her life. Her reality had been a blueprint, and he, the architect, had executed it flawlessly. As the door clicked shut, a profound silence settled over the house. Clara's chest tightened. The normal sounds of home, the hum of the refrigerator, creaking floorboards, now seemed threatening, reminders of every subtle manipulation. Her mind replayed each minor incident, the earring, the lipstick, the phantom emails, the bouquet of lilies, the garage sale photo. Every detail had been part of a grand design, every moment orchestrated to ensure her eventual realization. She sank onto the sofa, trembling, consumed by a mixture of shame, fear, and awe. The quiet, ordinary man she had underestimated was not just her husband. He was the most formidable adversary she could have ever imagined. Clara's life had been irrevocably changed, and there was no escaping the brilliance of his calculated, silent vengeance.